Vayichan sham Yisrael enged ha'har ahar kulanu ke'echad.
I just want to start out by, first of all, thanking my good friend Rabbi Tarragon and this whole Vayichan movement that we were standing at Har Sinai together as one. I think it's such a beautiful concept, and certainly one of the things that we have learned through Corona is that we are one nation, and we need to come together. We need to be together. And so I want to thank Rabbi Tarragon. I want to thank Yeshivat Hakotel, my neighbor from Aish HaTorah, for putting this tremendous program together. I think it's just invaluable at this time in this junction for all of us to come together to spread the words of Torah and to stay strong as one nation. We really are one nation, and I think it's so important. I just want to start out before the shir by saying that in Kol Dodi Dofek, Rabbi Soloveitchik has the most beautiful mashal, and he says the following. And he says that one time there was a being, a person, a human that had two heads and one body. And the question came up before the Beis Din, do you give that person, that entity, do you give it two portions of an inheritance, or one portion? Is one body, one portion, or two heads, two portions? They weren't sure what to do. So they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pour hot water over one of the heads. If the other head screams in agony and pain, they're one entity. But if the other head doesn't feel the pain, they're two entities. And Rabbi Soloveitchik said so beautifully that in order to be one nation, you have to feel each other's pain. Meaning, if the Jews of Buenos Aires have an issue, the Jews of England have to feel the pain. If the Jews of America are suffering, the Jews of Israel have to feel the pain. What brings us together and makes us one nation is that our hearts are with each other. And for this program and this time, and coming here Shavuos, especially since so many of us went into Pesach saying, okay, we'll get through Pesach and then we'll be out of our homes. Baruch Hashem in Eretz Yisrael, they have very much been able to start coming out. For those of us in America, it's been slower. Other places around the globe, it depends where. England also, it's been slower. But the bottom line is, as Jews, we need to feel each other's pain. We need to be there with each other, spiritually and physically caring for each other. So again, I just want to thank all the hard work that went into this program. I think it's absolutely, positively terrific. Okay, now for the main event of what I wanted to talk about today was talk about leadership and really what it means to be a Jewish leader through the lens of Tanakh, and how there's a little bit of suffering that goes along with that. The first parsha of the Torah is talking about Bereshis, right? Bereshis, what do you have? You have Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, right? Adam and Chava are married, they're together, and they're given one mitzvah. Whatever you do, please don't eat from this Eitz Hadas, right? Don't eat from that one tree. You know the story. I don't have to fill in all the blanks. Basically, the snake comes and convinces Chava that you got to eat from the fruit of that tree. She eats it, and what does she do? She gives it to Adam. He eats it, and they both basically sinned. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down and says, Adam, what happened? What'd you do? What does Adam say? She made me do it, right? Chava, what did you do? Snake made me do it. Literally, right out of the gate, you have this passing of the buck, the inability to take responsibility for your actions. What about their children? Cain and Hevel. Well, you know what happens. Cain kills Hevel, right? He gets jealous of him. He kills him. Hashem says to Cain, where's your brother? He famously says, am I my brother's keeper? Right? Also, not my fault. I'm not taking responsibility. The entire Parsha Bereshis, you have this passing of the buck. No one is taking responsibility. On to Noach, second Parsha, right? Noach was a tzaddik. How do I know Noach was a tzaddik? Noach, he's tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. Noach's a tzaddik, right? And Noach goes out, he does all the right things, and Hashem says to him, everyone else is bad. I'm going to put out a terrible flood, and I'm going to save you. And Noach says, great, I'll build the ark. Everything's wonderful. Does Noach take responsibility? Absolutely. He's tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. He takes responsibility for himself. What doesn't he take? He does not take communal responsibility. He doesn't take responsibility for everyone else. So here you have Bereshis, Noach, then comes the first Jew, Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu, who literally started the Jewish movement. He started us and put us in alignment with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem. He takes a look at Adam and Chava and Cain and Noach, and he says, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to take responsibility. And he keeps grabbing everybody and saying, there's one God, there's one God. He goes out, the famous medrash that he goes and he busts up all the idols in his father's shop. His father says, what did you do? He says, oh, that idol must have done it. He's out there taking responsibility, trying to teach God to everyone. Nefesh Sha'as B'chara, you got 100,000 people believing in one God in Hashem. So much so that when it comes time, right, for Sodom and Amorah, and Hashem says, these guys are horrible guys, I'm just going to destroy them, right? What does he do? He davens, he fights for them. These guys are the worst of the worst. And he says, Hashem, if I can find 50 tzaddikim, 40, 30, all the way down to 10 tzaddikim, will you spare these 5 cities? And Hashem plays along the whole time. Because Abraham is taking responsibility for the entire world. Because he understands that someone has got to fight for other people. And he takes it to the extreme. That he is always there, always fighting for people, always defending people. And he sets down in the foundational. If you want to know what a foundational belief of the Jewish people is, it is that we take responsibility for each other and everything around us. Right? That's what makes us Jews. That's what differentiates us from the entire world, is that we always take this responsibility. And Abraham does this on a huge global level for not good people, for good people. He's taking responsibility for everything. How does this sense of responsibility play out? So I'd like to look at a couple other places throughout Chumash where this sense of responsibility plays a role. And you see it getting passed down. And what we're going to do here today is our intention is to kind of set forth that a foundation of responsibility. And you will find this in many, many other places, Tanakh. I'm more than happy. I have a very easy email address, sburg@aish.com, sburg@aish.com. You're going to start sending me emails saying, oh, I saw it here, I saw it there, I saw Naksha, this or that, Pinchas, right? Great. Let me give you one of what I think is one of the prime examples. Because Avram really kicks off the Sefer Bereshis for the Jews. And the end is a story of Yosef and his brothers. What is the story of Yosef and his brothers? The story of Yosef and his brothers is that Yosef is young and he's a little mature and his brothers don't like him and he has dreams. And he says in the dreams that basically you're all going to worship me, and they like him even less, and it's a disastrous relationship. Yaakov gives him, as you know, Joseph in his technicolor dream coat. He gives him the coat of many colors, right? He gives him that coat to wear because he's his favorite. Yosef goes out. Yaakov sends him to go track down his brothers, and disaster strikes. Firstly, they grab him, they throw him in a pit, right? Reuben says, throw him in the pit. Reuben says, we can't do this, right? And they want to kill him. And then, by the way, Reuben disappears. We'll talk about Reuben more in a few moments. So what happens? They're back and forth. We should kill him. Yehuda stands up and says, let's sell him. Let's make a couple bucks on the deal. Right? Yehuda knows they really shouldn't kill him, but who is he to go up against everyone else? We'll sell him. So they sell Yosef. You know the story. They take the blood of an animal. They smear it on the coat. They come back to Yaakov, say, Yaakov, we're so sorry, but no more Yosef. Trying to look as upset as they could, as they probably had a look of glee in their eye. And at that point, Yaakov is inconsolable. They cannot calm him down. And they don't know what to do. So what do? They blame Yehuda. Yehuda says, you're blaming me. You wanted to kill him. They said, yeah, but it was your fault. And there was a split between Yehuda and the brothers. And this is where you get one of the strangest stories in Tanakh. Many schools skip over this story, but this story is integral if you want to understand the whole science of responsibility. Yehuda has a son named has to get him married. So he says, okay, you're going to marry Tamar. Great, they get married. Chasana, beautiful, great. Drops dead. Onan, you're up on deck, right? You have the mitzvah of Yibum. Onan goes and marries him. Guess what? Dead. There's a third son. Well, Yehuda is not so keen to marry this son off, right? He's a little nervous. So he pushes and pushes off. Tamar wants to do the mitzvah. So it becomes one of these very strange stories where she goes, she dresses aside the road so you can't recognize her as a woman that is not so tznius. And Yehuda goes by and she lures in Yehuda to have relations so that she can complete the mitzvah, but Yehuda doesn't know who she is. They get to the end of the interaction. And what happens, right? Yehuda says, I don't have any money on me. She says, well, okay, leave me collateral. He leaves her his cloak, his signet ring, and his staff, and he goes to run to an ATM to get some money and comes back, she's gone. No one knows who she was. No one's heard of her, right? They don't know what to do. So he goes on with his life, right? Okay, I'll have to get a new, cloak and ring and, the whole deal. Fast forward a few months, she's pregnant. They come to Yehuda, and they say, Yehuda, she is pregnant, and she was supposed to have Yibum. She didn't have Yibum. She's supposed to get killed. He says, that's true. We should burn her. That's the punishment. This is where it becomes one of these massive, if you can picture it like a Hollywood blockbuster, right? You have the fire burning here. You have Tamar standing here, Yehuda in judgment. And Tamar says to Yehuda, she says, whoever owns this cloak, this staff, and this signet ring, father my child. Yehuda has to make a decision. Does he admit the truth and get incredibly embarrassed and devastated? Or he keep his mouth closed, status quo. There's nothing stronger in the world than the status quo. Yehuda says two words. Tzadka mimeni. She is more righteous than I am. And they let her go. She has twins, and eventually that leads to David HaMelech and Mashiach. And then we go back to Yosef's story. This story is so powerful, we're going to come back to it afterwards. But what Yehuda established here, Tzadka mimeni, admitting the truth, even if it's embarrassing, it's reminiscent of another question that's asked in Tanakh. Very famous question. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz Zatzal, Rosh Yeshiva Mir, asked this question. He says that Shaul was the first king of the Jews, of Klal Yisrael, and he went out, he's supposed to kill Amalek, he doesn't kill Amalek, and what happens? Shmuel comes and says, you're out of here. Your kids are gone, that's it. The line stops here. David HaMelech goes out and sins with Bathsheba. And then the Nevi'im say, it's okay. Okay, Nassim says, okay, you'll do tshuva, it'll be fine. What's going on? So says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz beautifully. He said, it's all in the reaction. If you look at what Shaul said, right? He says when he's first accosted, Shmuel says, what's going on? He says, the people, they made it. He starts to blame someone else. The second you do that, you can't be a leader of the Jewish people. Shmuel says you're gone. When David is confronted, David, how could you have done this sin with Bathsheba? He says two words. Chatasi laHashem. I sinned against God. Chatasi laHashem. He takes responsibility. Sounds familiar. Yehuda says, Tzadka mimeni. David says, Chatasi laHashem. Right? This is Yehuda and David. We're going to get back to this because we want to get back to Yosef's story. Right? But this is leadership and this is responsibility. Leaders take responsibility. This is what Avram envisioned, and this is what carries throughout Tanakh about Jewish leaders. Back to the story of Yosef. Yosef goes, as you know, down to Egypt. He winds up being in the house Potiphar, and he winds up rising up all the way until he gets challenged, and he gets thrown into jail, and he's in jail. He interprets the dreams for the baker and for the butler, the person that brings out the wine, and sure enough, just as he interprets, the baker gets killed, and the butler gets returned to Paro, and eventually when Paro has some dreams, he says, is there anyone who can interpret them? And the butler says, oh, I know this guy, Yosef. Let's bring him out. They bring him out. He does such a good job. They make him the second in command of all of Egypt, and he saves them from famine. It's like a play. This is why they made a play out of Joseph Tekla Dream Club. They bring the Jews, right? The Jewish guys come back. It's a famine. They come to Egypt because they heard there's food there. Yosef spots them, but doesn't say who he is, and they can't recognize him, right? Who would have thought he'd be number 2 in all the land of Egypt? Yosef, says to them, oh, there's another brother, fine, I'm going to hang on to Shimon here, but you got to bring Binyamin. The youngest brother's not here. That was Yosef's full brother. Bring him, otherwise don't come back. They go back home. They say to Yaakov, we've got to go back, but we need Binyamin. Yaakov says, no way. I lost Yosef. I'm not losing Binyamin, right? My beloved Rachel, those are her 2 sons. Not happening. Finally, they're starving. They got to go back. Reuven, remember Reuven from the beginning who says throw him in a pit and then disappears? Reuven pops back in the scene and says, I'll tell you what, Dad, here are my kids, and if I don't bring Binyamin back, you can kill them. Yaakov says, Chacham, if you don't bring back my son, you want me to kill my grandkids to feel better, right? Reuven always wants to do the right thing in leadership, but can't necessarily get there. We all know people like that. They're genuinely trying. They can't necessarily get there. That's when Yehuda steps forward. And Yehuda says, I got this. I'll do this. I'll deliver them. And we don't know whether it was a look in his eye that Yaakov saw by Yehuda, or Yehuda had lost 2 sons. So Yaakov knew that Yehuda understood what it meant to lose 2 sons. Yehuda takes Binyamin. They go up to Yosef. Yosef showers Binyamin with affection, not letting them know. He wants to see if the jealousy is still there. Takes his goblet, his chalice, sneakily, if that's a word, he sneaks it into the bag of Binyamin, right? They go on their way. Sure enough, they send the Egyptian cops after him. They open the bags. They find the chalice in Binyamin's bag, and they bring them all back. And Yosef says, I'm a good guy. I get it. Binyamin, he's a young guy. He's a pickpocket. Leave Binyamin. You can go back home. That's when Yehuda steps forward. And Yehuda says, now remember, Yehuda doesn't know that Binyamin didn't really steal it at this point in time. He says, I can't go back without Binyamin. If you need to keep someone here in jail, take me. Take my life for his life. And that's when Yosef loses it. Throws everyone out and says, I'm Yosef. Is my father still alive? Why? What happened? What made him break down? Yosef sees that Yehuda is not the same Yehuda. He sees the willingness to sacrifice, to take responsibility. He sees that Yehuda, who couldn't bring himself, Yehuda knew they shouldn't kill him, but he couldn't fight the brothers, he said, to sell him. That Yehuda's changed. He says, take my life. Take my life for Binyamin's. What changed in Yehuda? What changed in Yehuda was Tamar. He realized that even if you could embarrass yourself, you have to tell the truth. You have to take responsibility. A Jew always has to take responsibility. That lesson, it brought him to the point that he knew when Binyamin's life is on the line, I got to do the right thing. That's all that matters. It's Jews sticking up for other Jews. And this continues on and on and on. If you look at Sefer Bamidbar, another time you can go through the whole Sefer Bamidbar and see this Mahalach, but it gets to the point of Matos, where you see in there 2 things. Remember, the first half of Bamidbar, they're rebelling. You have Korach, and you have Meraglim, and you have the Slav, the Quail, and rebellions galore. Everyone's fighting. You get to the end, 2 things happen. Number 1 is they go to war in Matos, and they come back and they say, Moshe, no one died. We want to give extra. Moshe doesn't know what to do. They want to give extra. Hashem says, take it. But Adam Lamakom, they take responsibility and they want to give back and give thanks. And then there's the episode of 2.5 tribes. That the 2.5 tribes say to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, we want to stay here on the other side of the Yarden. It's beautiful. We want to make our homes here outside, right outside of Israel. And Moshe goes crazy. He says, you're no good. You're just like your fathers from 40 years ago. And they say, no. Moshe, you kidding me? We're going to go at the front. We're going to fight. We're going to fight. We would never leave our brothers to fight alone without us. And he hears that. He says, okay. Because Klal Yisrael has learned this lesson of responsibility in coming together. I always, when I grew up as a kid, I grew up in Moshava. And every year, I can't tell you how many times we watched Raid on Entebbe. And I later worked for a youth group, and I used to show that film all the time. Because this is unbelievable scene. I used to get very emotional every time I saw it. And the scene was, there's an Air France jet that was hijacked to Uganda, and they're on the tarmac, and Bibi Netanyahu's brother, Yoni Netanyahu, is giving a speech, a Mussar Shmuz, and he says, why are we going halfway around the world to save these people? It's not an El Al jet, it's Air France. And he says, because they're Jews, and Jews always go get their Jews. And there's so many scenes like that to describe. So many scenes like that to describe. The way that Jews always stand up for Jews no matter where they are in the world. When I worked at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and I would talk very often about genocide there, and one of the issues, without going into a long explanation, but one of the issues facing genocide is, yes, it's a crime against humanity, but it's totally unenforceable, because who is supposed to go in and save the people there? In Rwanda, and I knew many Rwandan survivors, Rwanda, they killed 800,000 Rwandans in 3 months with machetes. I remember at the Wiesenthal Center, we once had President Bill Clinton at an event, and they asked him if he had any regrets. And he said his one big regret was Rwanda. He says, we couldn't have saved 800,000, but we could have saved 300,000 if we had done anything. That's what happens with genocide. Who's supposed to go save those people? Who? Well, one of the amazing things is, and I tell people all the time, the one thing that breaks this pattern are the Jews. There's a number of years ago, a few years ago, when there were issues between Russia and Ukraine. And there was the mayor of the second largest city in Ukraine was out jogging. And he got shot in the back, because that's what was going on during that time. As I tell people, he won the genetic lottery. Why? Because he was Jewish. Israel picked him up and had him in a hospital and basically saved his life. Because Jews take responsibility. Jews are there for other Jews. We take responsibility for other Jews, and we're a light unto the nation. And we take responsibility for everything around the world. Travel the world and see how many hospitals were donated by Jews. How many Nobel Prize winners were Jews. We didn't create vaccines just to heal Jews. We believe in being a light unto the nations. Hashem gave us a job. Our job is to take responsibility. It's to build humanity. It's to do all the important things. But the only way that we can do it is if we keep the Torah. The Torah is what keeps us together. The fact that you can walk into any shul around the world and we all have the same Torah and we're reading from the same Torah and have the same Shabbos. These are the things that connect us. And this Shavuos, for so many of us, we're not going to be in the places we were last year. We're not going to be staying up all night in our shuls or in our yeshivas. Sometimes we can't be there. But it doesn't matter. Because in our hearts, we're going to be together. Vayichan, from Neged Har, we were there. We're there together. Our hearts, a Jewish heart, is always there together. I'm going to leave you with one story, true story, one of my favorite inspirational stories. I worked in a youth group many years ago. We used to have Shabbatonim. I was in Detroit. And there was Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Dayton, Toledo, all these different places. And there was a young woman from Charleston, West Virginia, who used to come. She was the only kid that would come from her town, and it was right before we had a convention, right before Shavuos, and we had all these Shavuos programs happening. And she said, where should I go? I'm the only kid. We said, don't worry, we'll get you somewhere else, right? But sure enough, if you're in public school, you're taking off 2 days Shavuos, you can't take the travel day. It just didn't work. So she was going to be home alone. And one of the advisors went to a local Jewish bookstore. He took a box, and he bought a bunch of Svarim, English Svarim, put them in the box, and he started to write letters. And the first letter was 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And he put them all in the box, and he sent it to her. She opened the box, and there it was. Every hour she had a letter giving her chizuk, cheering her on. You're part of Klal Yisrael. I know you're the only person right now up at 2 in the morning in Charleston, West Virginia learning Torah, but you're part of Klal Yisrael. And so I looked on the internet today and I saw these beautiful programs dropping off boxes of Sfarim for Shavuot. That's all I could think about. The secret of the Jew is very simple. When we stood at Har Sinai, we were one. And today, no matter where we are in the world, we need to be one. Because when we are one with the Holy One above us, then nothing can stop us. We could do great things for the world, for the Jewish people. So I want to wish all of you an incredible Yom Tov. You should have with strength, with energy, and the Almighty should take this plague away very quickly. And the second we get out of our homes, we got to thank Him by learning Torah and changing the world. Thanks you so much. Chag Sameach.